Innotribe. Please welcome Innotribe Startup Challenge Manager, Kevin Johnson.
Thank you very much. Third time's a charm, Ben. Thank you very much. Welcome. Welcome to our third day of Innotribe at Sibos. Welcome to everybody here. I'm going to start today with a quick look back at yesterday with some numbers, some very big numbers. The first one I'd like to talk to you about is 3,000. Thanks to everybody here on the conference floor and everywhere around, we got through 3,000 cups of coffee yesterday. So there's still another 5,000 to go, so keep on keeping them busy, but I hope you're enjoying it. The second one, more importantly, is 500. We had over 500 of you come to the Innotribe space for our sessions yesterday. Akhtar's going to talk about why they're so important, but it was really great to see the room really full, people working really hard together on this one here. Adding this to the numbers of yesterday, this means we've already exceeded the number of people that have come through the Innotribe space last year already, and we're only halfway through our journey. So thank you very much. I'd now like to welcome up on stage to really talk about what we did yesterday. Akhtar, could you come and give us a little bit of a snapshot of what happened yesterday? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kevin. First of all, I just want to thank Sibos, I want to thank Innotribe for allowing us to have this conversation, a conversation that was rich, exciting, invigorating, challenging, at times a little bit contentious, but all in all, some great, great next steps. But before I start, let me just thank the collective Next team, Mary, Evan, Donna, Liz, and Gretchen, for doing this amazing work of capturing the conversation so that we can actually represent it back. And of course, the fabulous team that sits behind here that puts all of that together. So thank you very much. Our day started off with an exciting conversation with the millennials. This was all about digital behavior. It was about trying to understand what banks need to do to service this new generation, a generation that is digitally inclined, and how do you service them effectively? And we got some very interesting ideas. I mean, one of the 4 things that came out there was trust, engagement, planning, enablement. And the ideas that came out were, hey, you know, we don't need a traditional bank. What we need is a personal identity management tools that we can connect to. We also need to get real-time information. So we get real-time approval so that we can get the loans or the resources that we want. We behave and act as a community. And therefore, we want to be able to crowdfund and crowdsource some of these resources that we talk about. And then we want to be able to have a digital ombudsman that can actually intervene as a neutral party as we go about doing our business. So all in all, a very rich conversation. We moved from there to financial inclusion. The goal was to ensure 80% of the population is financially included by 2035. That was the goal. That is actually the work that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is doing. And what we wanted to do, and the challenge that was given to us by our 2 phenomenal speakers, Uday Kumar and Costa from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and Uday from his own company, Artemis, giving us the challenge and then showing us what the solutions are and how we can connect to those that are not yet digitally connected and included, and financially included. And the 2 things that came, or several things that came out was, first, it has to be digital. You've got to be able to utilize data. 3, it has to become cashless. It was make it simple and cheap. Have real-time settlement. And you've got to understand that we are working in conditions where connectivity may not necessarily be ubiquitous. So how do we overcome that with solutions that are both real-time and act as real-time, but can also allow for microtransactions to take place? And I think some of the important thing was let's design a cashless platform, and that's what the banks can do, that allows for these transactions and these conversations to take place. Of course, once you have this conversation around what banks need to do and how do you include those that are excluded, the big question mark in the room is, will we be allowed to do this? So the next set of conversations that we had was all about regulations. And how does the regulatory framework come into play? I mean, one clear thing that came out of this conversation was there isn't one single regulatory framework anymore. Because you are crossing over both financial institutions and the telecommunications institutions and other organizations that are actually concerned about security and fraud. So now you've got multiple groups of people that need to come together to be able to arrive at regulations that will allow working with the millennials possible, working with those that are financially excluded possible, and then, of course, the last session which I will come to. So here, the conversation, again, was how do we make it simple? And one of the conversations was, do we need regulations at all? Should the private sector now, with all of the technology that they have, that they are making digital identity possible, should we piggyback on that? But I think that the important piece that came out was this notion of a sandbox, a regulatory sandbox that allows for it to be inclusive and allows for it to be open for diverse perspectives. And if we can move towards that, then I think we actually get quite ahead in terms of where we want to go. And finally, we had this two wonderful speakers, Sam, who's here in the audience, and Christine, that talked about this massive crisis that we are facing, which is people that are moving across borders. And how do we deal with them? What are the issues that they confront with? And clearly here, the most important thing was that these are both externally displaced people and internally displaced people. But even here, what is exciting was that they have connectivity, phones. That is their lifeline. And how do we hook onto that system? And some commonalities between the financial inclusion group and accelerating modern payment platforms for social impact was that we need to have micropayments. It has to be cashless. It has to be, ubiquitous in the extent that these are people moving across borders, and we need to be able to carry their identity across and to provide them with a set of resources that allows them to function. And then they ended up with a challenge to us that said, hey, we want to be able to create a refugee bank. We want to be able to utilize the fintech community and create a refugee fintech lab. And then they have Project Iran, which is really talking about internally displaced people and how do you connect with them. And our goal, as we ended the day, was to figure out ways to support this effort. Our challenge, and your challenge, the community's challenge, is what are we going to do between now and next year? Our hope is that we come back next year and report out on the progress that we've made on these four fronts. And if we can do that, I think that is going to be fantastic. What you have today is the opportunity to see how you're going to make that progress by connecting with the fintech innovators and the fintech lab, and that's really where I think the connection is going to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Akhtar. I think yesterday you came up and gave a preview of what the day was going to be, and it was a session in its own right. And I think for those of you who couldn't make yesterday, I couldn't imagine a better way to wrap it up. Now, moving on, so Akhtar's given us a challenge of what we're going to do next year. Now, I'm really pleased and honored to sort of be able to welcome onto the stage the SWIFT CEO, Gottfried. So, Akhtar's talked about the next 12 months. I'd like you to take you a little bit further into the future.
All right.
We're just launching our 2020 strategy, so I'm going to take you into our next strategy cycle. I'd like you to think, in 5 years' time, you're going to be on the stage, you're opening Sibos. What trends and what things are you seeing today are going to influence you, and what big topics are you going to be talking about? So we've got your TV camera in, so that we can actually record your opening plenary now.
And you're going to confront me with it
Yep,
next year.
so
Okay,
when
good.
you do it, we're going to say, 5 years ago you said this. So Gottfried,
All right, thank
the
you.
stage is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. All right. Let me start with a thought. I have to say that the thought of refugees and taking that as an opportunity is a really interesting. I hadn't thought of that one. The interesting link I'm making is the reason that M-Pesa was as big as it was in Kenya is because it leveraged the situation of civil war, displacement, tribal warfare, and that made M-Pesa as big as it is. So I think it's actually a very, I hadn't thought of that one, but it's a unique opportunity, and it tends to be in places like that you can try new things because all the other things break down. What I wanted to do is, before jumping ahead 5 years, maybe give a bit of a perspective, and I wanted to tick off 3 things. One is Innotribe as a startup. Looking back, this is now the 7th Innotribe. We started it in 2009. And it has a lot of commonalities with a typical startup. It started off, for those of you who were in, I don't know if anybody in this room was in Hong Kong in 2009 at the first session of Innotribe. I see a few heads nodding. But it really started out, as is with many startups, we just started it. It was a band of people, Costa, Matteo, and Peter, who sort of said, you know, we're going to do this. Swift Management, we had no idea what this was about. I can tell you, we sort of jumped in, did it, and yeah, it touched a nerve. It grew on to be what it is today. Like many startups, it's gone through a few management changes. Costa is now with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He'll be here. Matteo is with Sberbank, as far as I can remember. So part of management has moved on. We've moved in, brought in new people, but in spite of that, I think it's growing and proving more successful. So a lot can happen in 7 years. I guess that's the lesson we learned. The other interesting thing for me is, as management, one of the dilemmas you always have is the trade-off between a sandbox and doing it in-house. How do you do intrapreneuring? Do you do that by doing it inside the big machine and then you know it will get smothered and it doesn't work? Do you do it in a sandbox? Nice, but if it's successful, how do you ever bring it in-house without killing it again? That is one of the real trade-offs that I think everybody in banks is wrestling with, that trade-off between the sandbox and in-house. And I think Innotribe for us has been a good learning opportunity, putting it outside, and now slowly we're increasing the ties between Innotribe and Swift, doing labs inside Swift, experimenting with blockchain and all of that. So for us, it's been a real interesting experiment in how do you combine and these two. Then I would like, before going ahead 5 years, take a look at cycles in innovation. And I'm no longer the oldest guy in the room, but I was on the panel 2 days. I certainly was the oldest guy on the panel 2 days ago. I've lived through the previous cycle in the late 90s, and then the run up to the year 2000. In the late 90s, apart from consulting in Katowice with Brunon, who's here in the room, I was running a conference with McKinsey, New Money, New Distribution, where we really looked ahead at what was all the innovation going to bring, etc. The year 2000 and then the crash afterwards and the rebuild up. And to some extent, this feels a little bit like the year 2000 again. There's a lot of euphoria, lots of new techniques around. We'll see how it plays out. Enormous amounts of funding. Anybody with a few PowerPoints and an ID can get funding right now. Some people are wondering, are these valuations still realistic? So for those of you who were around in 2000, there's a little bit of that going around. But then if you look what happened, I think we had the big extinction. It's a bit of biology. You have a Cambrian explosion of new technologies and startups, followed by a mass extinction that we had in the year 2001, 2002. But then a lot of it what makes it through the extinction is really successful. I mean, the Google, Amazon, a couple of real PayPal made it through the extinction and then really blossomed in the run-up to where we are, the financial crisis, and now this one. So it tends to go in fits and starts. So my feeling would be, I think we will see a mass extinction in maybe in the next 5 years. But the interesting thing will be what will make it through that, and will be the equivalent of the Web 2.0 that came out of 2001, 2002. So that's another thought to keep in mind. These things, like banking, tends to go through cycles. So you wonder how is that going to play out. So. Now, getting to your question, taking a look ahead in 5 years, for me it has to be shaped by the same three trends that I mentioned in the opening plenary. I think the move to Asia is definitely here to stay. We'll go back and forth, but I really see. I really am with the opening speaker. China is a huge experimenting ground, or more than an experimenting ground. There are very interesting things happen in the Chinese ecosystem that I think will drive what will happen in the next 5 years. Asia in general will be driving a lot of that. That's the one thing. The second one, regulation, geopolitics. Huge part of the agenda. You mentioned it here. That will not go away, and a lot of startups will see. And banks as well. How do we cope? How do we make KYC, sanction screening? How do we make that work in these new technologies? Blockchain is great, but if it's totally anonymous, that will not work. Authorities will want to be able to trace transactions, trace people, etc. So you need to find a way to combine privacy with discoverability of identity, and a lot of people are working on that. So I think that's the second trend to keep in mind. And then the third one is technology itself. It will not stand still. I'm not going to be predicting here which technology will make it. For me, at SWIFT, we're clearly at a stage where we try to see what's out there. We reproduce it in our lab. Blockchain is a good example. We've got all the major blockchain solutions, Ethereum, chain, etc., running in a lab setting. We're talking to people. We're trying to see what is our role. We're experimenting with that. But I think, at least for us, it is too soon to put chips on the table and make big bets. And I think that's what we're seeing at many of the banks I'm talking to. They're making bets, but they're hedging and they're trying to see how it plays out. So I think it's early to make definite statements. The one thing that is for sure is these trends will shape it. Banking 5 years from now will be different. Banking now is completely different from 10 years ago. All the banks now have mobile apps, multi-channel strategies, digital strategies, social media strategies. It has transformed the way banking does IT. So 5 years from now, one thing that really I would want to stress is banks will have to take a look at their core systems. I think that and I see that at SWIFT as well. We have the previous wave of innovation has been bolted on to the core systems, really building middleware layers to allow for mobile, to allow for internet banking, phone banking, etc. Most banks have built these middleware layers with solution providers like CR2, etc. I think in the next 5 years we've reached the limits of what you can do with bolting on things. So you'll see banks take a real look at redesigning core systems and how can we rather than doing, for example, real-time payments as an add-on with shadow accounting in between that and batch processing at the center, how can we take real-time processing and bring it to the core of our system, which will be a huge transformational challenge and one that many banks will be working with and wrestling with. So 5 years out, some extinction of a lot of the initiatives we'll see today. A few will make it, and they will be starting to grow big. I don't think banks will be part of the mass extinction, but I do think you'll see winners and losers. You see some banks doing really well. Those banks that have a good digital strategy, those banks that are really working on their core systems and see how they can do it. Banks that are bringing in talent from the outside, that's another big challenge. How does talent play in out of all of this? Can banks retain it? So voila, I hope that's vague enough so that I won't be confronted with any concrete things like any predictions that I'm sure will not play out over the next 5 years. I'll conclude with really welcoming you all here and thanking you for participating. For us, Innotribe has been a real success run. I'm not going to claim any responsibility for the success that Innotribe is. That really belongs with the community, with the team that started it, some of whom are here as Innotribe alumni, and with the team that is running it right now. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful Innotribe day.
Thank you, Gottfried. Thank you for very skillfully avoiding my question, and I think we can cut the VT here. So, I'm seeing news at the background. Okay. Oh. So we have some breaking news, and it's not Gottfried predicting the future. It is a little bit of a look into the future. So we've just had some news this morning that came in. One of our partners, one of our sort of banking partners here, is looking to this future that Gottfried was describing. And ING are launching an initiative very close to our heart, both here and also physically. They're launching a new program called the ING FinTech Village. I'm very pleased that David Dabb dropped by this morning to talk to us about it, and we've managed to grab him in today to have a quick chat with you about it. David, over to you.
Thank you, Kevin. Good morning, everyone. Indeed, we are launching today. We are launching FinTech Village, which is a FinTech accelerator, indeed located very close to SWIFT in Brussels. Before I explain what FinTech Village is, let me explain the why. What are we trying to solve here? And if you have been in a startup, one of the things you know very rapidly is that it's not easy at all to work with banks. They are complex organizations. You don't know on which door to knock. When you knock on the door, navigating in the organization is difficult, takes time. On the other side, the banks are not used to work with startups. You have multiple rules, processes, it's very complex, and it takes ages. And when you think that you are there, that you have a deal, actually risk, compliance, audit, whatever jumps at you and back to square one. I'm slightly exaggerating, but not very much here. That's the problem we are trying to solve, a big problem for startups, but also a problem for banks. Because with this, banks cannot actually fully leverage and benefit from FinTech activity. So how do we want to solve that? FinTech Village is a FinTech accelerator, and we are going to focus on startups that are a bit mature in the sense that it's not two guys in a garage, but startups that are close to a proof of concept. I mean, a proof of concept, very critical moment for a startup. Two things you need to do. You need to prove your concept, and you need to sell, sell, sell. That's what a startup needs to do. And this is where we are going to help by focusing on that stage which is close to the proof of concept. You know, we'll provide mentors, a very strong mentorship program with senior bankers. These are the guys, remember the previous slide, that are difficult to get hold of if you're a startup. I mean, these will be our mentors. Not only them, but they will be actively involved in preparing together with a startup a proof of concept. You know, around the mentors, with a community, with a number of partners, we'll get to that in a moment. We have serial entrepreneurs, consultants, and a vast community, because as a bank, we can bring a lot of things, but there are also things that are better provided by other partners. And also, through this partner and through the bank and its global network, will obviously help the startups reach out and build their commercial sales pipeline. So that's what we do. Here, the partners, you can see, obviously, ING is in the lead, but as core partners, we have Deloitte, we have Innotribe, obviously, and we have other partners. We have SmartFin, Jürgen Ingels here, co-founder of Clear2Pay, has created a venture capital fund, FinTech. They are one of our partners. With Explore, more about Explore later today. Wim is here, CEO of Explore. It's a community. It's an ecosystem organization, FinTech ecosystem organization. We have other investor bodies like Bellcube and so on. And you see some of our mentors here, a variety of profile. Obviously, you have the people from the bank, head of lending, head of small and medium enterprise, chief marketing officer, and many others. But you have also serial entrepreneurs. People have been very successful at not only taking their startup to, from past proof of concept, but taking up to global level and IPO or selling the startups. Partners from Deloitte, and also some people, some real hackers that can help startups. In terms of location, as I said, it's going to be based in Belgium, in Brussels. Actually, it's a well-kept secret, but in Brussels you have a strong fintech ecosystem. I mean, obviously you have SWIFT, but you have also Euroclear, MasterCard Europe, you have Ogone, you have more than that. You have Isabel, you have Bank of New York, Mellon, and so on for the security services business. So a very strong community, in particular in transaction banking. And you are not far away from the European Union and all the regulatory aspects related to that. A very interesting location also in terms of accessing continental Europe, very close to London, Paris, Frankfurt, and many other capitals, so a very central place, multilingual and so on. And we will co-locate at Explore. Explore is a fintech association, community, will be located in their building together with more mature fintech, venture capital firms, a rep office of fintechs coming from elsewhere, Scandinavia, US, and so on. So a very rich community that's also going to be very, very helpful for startups. And as Kevin said, we are launching today. Very proud to announce that we opened the website this morning. Startups can apply as from now. The application period will be open until December the 6th. We'll select between 7 and 10 startups for this first edition. And the program will start in March. It's a 4-month program, which will end up with the classical demo day just before the summer in June. And the startups that will successfully graduate will continue and do a proof of concept with us. As I said, the cornerstone of this program is to help startups prepare a proof of concept to boost their activity, their valuation, everything, make them more successful. Thank you very much. For those interested, we have here postcard. You can grab one. We have all the details. You have the QR. You can go and look it up. More details in the website. Thank you very much.
So thank you, David. So, like I said, I grabbed him on the way to another meeting this morning, so I hope I haven't made you too late. So I'm going to look ahead at what we're going to be doing. So on Monday, everything we did, it was a hugely successful day we did around platforms. As you heard earlier, Akhtar talked about what we did yesterday around society. Today is our deep dive on innovation. We've got 2 sessions on here. First one of these is around fintech hubs, and that session is at 12:45. It's called Why Banks Need Fintech Hubs. It's not about competing hubs. It's really about an ecosystem. There are hubs around the world looking at startups, attracting talent in there, and what we want to explain is why banks need fintech hubs. That's what the session's called, and that's really what it's about. What is their raison d'etre? What is the why? Why should I, as a bank, be interested in what these guys are doing? It's about talent. It's about opportunities. So we've actually invited representatives from 8 of the world's leading fintech hubs, from Silicon Valley, from New York, London, Belgium, Luxembourg, Switzerland, right here in Singapore, and down in Australia, to come into this room to explain what their value proposition is, but also what their sort of strong assets are and how they're actually linking together to create this ecosystem. So that promises to be a great session right here on this very stage. Straight after that, we're going to see some startups in action as well. So this afternoon, I'm really excited because we've got our grand final. My day-to-day job, as Ben mentioned at the beginning and successfully today, is that I'm the Innotribe Startup Challenge Manager. I got that right, didn't I? So what I do on a day-to-day job, we work with startups. Our core mission is to sort of get awareness of what they're doing, but also help the startups engage and collaborate with the industry. So every year we run the Startup Challenge. This year we've brought 20 startups through the Startup Challenge here to the floor of Sibos. 11 of them you'll actually find behind me around the outside here. After this, I would urge you to grab a coffee and go and speak to them. There's some great companies from all across the world. The Startup Challenge this year started off in London, went down to Cape Town, came over here to Singapore, and ended up in New York. At each of those, we had 5 companies that proved to be the best of the best, and we got those to Sibos. 2 of them are what we call growth stage companies, and these are on the outside. And our early stage companies are going to be competing this afternoon, not only for a cash prize and the title of winning startup this year, but really to try and connect with you guys. We've got 12 startups who want to explain what they're doing. The big red thread through the whole of Innotribe Sibos this year has been about collaboration. When I came onto this stage yesterday morning, I gave you a practical guide on how you could collaborate. One of those things was talking, which I've just invited you to do. The second one was listening, and that's what I'm going to invite you to do this afternoon. So we've got 12 startups who are going to be up on stage. We're going to start with BitSpark, and we've got Hyperledger, IWI Africa, Dual Payment Tech, Notify, got a company called Parity from London, Revolut, Sedici, Size Up, Token, Trusting Social, and Due Diligence. Now, these companies cover everything from Bitcoin all the way through to due diligence for SMEs and entrepreneurs. They're really looking at not just problems that they've got, but they're looking at opportunities that the banking industry as a whole needs to engage with. So I really urge you to come up, first of all, to the session here, and straight after that, we'll be taking everybody upstairs to the Startup Challenge final. We're in conference room 2 on level 3. We go from 2 till 5 with the startups, and then we have our cocktail where we announce the winning startup this year, and we do actually provide some drinks for that as well. So please come and join us. Your vote will decide who wins. This isn't a pre-planned competition. There is literally 12 companies up there that are trying to explain what they're doing, and they're going to be competing for your vote. So please come up, show your support, and we'll see you there. Now, they say progress is rapid, and this is unfortunately my last time that I'm actually going to be talking to you guys in the morning, because tomorrow morning I've been replaced by a robot. It's about yay high, and it's going to sit on one of these chairs. So my final word I'm going to say is a very quick thank you. Thank you to the Innotribe team. Thank you to the GPJ team, the Rapier team, to the Collective Next team. What you see in this room really is only the tip of the iceberg. Behind the wall there, we have an army of people putting this show on. And yeah, from the bottom of my heart, I love being part of this team. So thank you very much for everybody. I'd like you all to just give everybody a big round of applause. I'd now like to invite you to grab a coffee, go speak to our startups. I'll say thank you to David for coming in, to Gottfried for coming in. Sorry? Bash, indeed. Yes, yes, bash. Ooh, party. Okay, thank you very much. One last thing before I get to my last thing. I'm slick. So this evening, after our Startup Challenge final, thank you very much for the reminder, Peter, we're actually bringing together ecosystems. This is what we try and do here with Innotribe. We've tried to model ourselves around the Medici effect of bringing people together. So this evening, in a place called Bash, which is across the other side of Singapore, we're going to take people from here and put them together with the local fintech ecosystem. So we have the local Singapore key movers and shakers, and here we like to think we have the global key movers and shakers, and we're going to bring everybody together for a networking evening. So this evening, we're going to get some buses that will leave from here from about 7:45 onwards. So after the Startup Challenge, after a few drinks here, we're going to take you out, we're going to introduce you to some more people who we think it would be great for you to meet, and you're all welcome to join us. I've been told that's it. So anyway, like I said, thank you very much to David, thank you very much to Gottfried, thank you very much to Akhtar. Grab a coffee, speak to the guys around here, hang around here. It's a great place to sort of hang around, and we'll see you all at 12:45 for Why Banks Need FinTech Hubs, and I really hope to see you all upstairs afterwards for the Startup Challenge final. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.